Hello students, I'm Mr. Troxel and welcome to 6th grade math. Here are the steps we're going to take to successfully add and subtract fractions. Step number 1, we're going to find a common denominator. Step number 2, we're going to redraw the problem if necessary. Step number 3, we're going to do the addition or subtraction. And step number 4, we're going to simplify the fraction if necessary. You can see we've got 4 problems on the screen. Let's start with number 1. In number 1, we've got 7/12 plus 4/12. The first thing we need to do is find a common denominator. The denominator is a fancy word for the number on the bottom of the fraction. In this case, 7/12 has the same denominator as 4/12. The denominator is 12 on both fractions, so we don't need to make any changes to that. We have a common denominator. Next, we would rewrite the fraction with the common denominators, but they're already common, so there's nothing to rewrite. So we're jumping right to the addition part. Now the numerator on the first fraction, and numerator is another way of saying the number on top, the numerator on the first fraction is a 7. The numerator on the second fraction is a 4. And we have addition right here. Since the denominators are already common, we can just add the top numbers. 7 plus 4 is 11. So we can write our answer as 11 over 12 or 11/12. So 7/12 plus 4/12 is 11/12. That one was pretty simple. Let's go to number 2. In number 2, we're adding fractions again. Step number 1, find a common denominator. We've got 7/9 plus 3/10. The first fraction, 7/9, has a 9 as a denominator, and the second fraction, 3/10, has a 10 as a denominator. Those, of course, are not common, and they need to be the same. What we want is the lowest multiple of both numbers. So let's write out the multiples of each one. The multiples of 9 are 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, 63, 72, 81, and 90. And since I have to find a common denominator that works with 10, I know, since the multiples of 10 all end in 0, I need one of my 9 multiples to end in 0. So I'm stopping at 90. Now let's write the multiples of 10. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and 90. You can see here we have a match at 90. So 90 is a common denominator for 9 and 10. Now we have to change the 9 and the 10 to 90. So now that we've found the common denominator, we're going to do step 2, rewrite the problem. In order to make this 9 a 90, we need to times it by a number that makes it 90. So 9 times what would be 90? Well, 9 times 10. But if we're going to times this bottom number by 10, we're also going to have to times this top number by 10. So 7 times 10 is 70. So let's write that down here. 7 times 10 is 70 over 9 times 10, which is 90. Let's bring our plus sign over. And now let's look at our next number, the 3 over 10. Well, we need to make this number here, this 10, needs to be the 90, the common denominator we talked about. 10 times what is 90? Well, 10 times 9 is 90. And if we're doing something to this bottom number, the denominator, we need to do the same thing to the top number, the numerator. So if we times the denominator by 9, we have to times the numerator by 9. So let's write the fraction down here. 9 times 3 is 27. And then 10 times 9 is 90. So now we have an addition of fractions with a common denominator. And 7/9 is the same as saying 70 over 90. And 3/10 is the same as saying 27 over 90. Now let's do our addition. 70 plus 27 is 97. Now the 90s don't get added, they just get moved over. Now this turns out to be an improper fraction, and when that happens, we convert it to a mixed number. But we'll save that for another video. Next we would simplify, but 97 over 90 is in its simplest form. Let's look at number 3. We have 7/10 minus 4/10. First, we need to find a common denominator. Here, both denominators are 10. They're the same, so we have a common denominator. Next, we would rewrite the problem using the common denominators. We already have a common denominator, so there's nothing to rewrite there, so we're good. Third, we would add or subtract. Well, it's a subtraction problem, so let's subtract. 7 minus 4 is 3, and we're going to bring our 10 over. We're not going to add them or subtract them. We're just going to move it over. So the answer to this, 7/10 minus 4/10, is 3/10. Finally, we're going to simplify. 3/10 is already in its simplest form, so we're done. Let's move on to number 4. Here we have 3/8 minus 1/6. The first step is to find the common denominator. 8 and 6 are not common denominators. We're going to need to list the multiples of 8 and 6 and see if we can find one that's common. You can also times the 8 and 6 together to create 48, but let's find out if that's the lowest common multiple. We'll start with 8. 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, and 48. Then we'll start with 6. 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, and 48. You'll notice we have a match right here at 48. So 48 is a common denominator for 8 and 6. Now if we look at our 3/8, in order to make the denominator on the first fraction of 48, what do we need to times 8 by? Well, 8 times 6 is 48, and whatever we do to this bottom number, we have to do to this top number. So if the numerator is 3, we're going to need to times that by 6 also. And 6 times 3 is 18. So let's redraw the new fraction and rewrite the problem. 6 times 3 is 18, and 6 times 8 is 48. Next, let's go to the second fraction. We need to make this 6 a 48, and in order to do that, we have to times it by something. 6 times 8 is 48, as we saw by our multiples up here. And if we're timesing the denominator by 8, we have to times the numerator by 8. So, our new second fraction in this problem is 8 times 1, which is 8, and 6 times 8, which is 48. That will give you a common denominator for both fractions. Now, we can just subtract. 18 minus 8 is 10, 48. Now our next step is to simplify. Can 10 over 48 be simplified? Well, they're both even numbers, so they can absolutely be divided by 2. If we divide 10 by 2, we get 5. If we divide 48 by 2, we get 24. And 5 over 24 is our answer in its simplest form. Thank you for watching. If you got some value out of this, please hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe so you get notified every time we have a new video. And leave a comment below. How's math going for you? I know my students are loving it. And that's 6th grade math with Mr. Troxel. We'll see you next time.